What is up, Insaners, and welcome to our Game Week 12 team selection video of the Fantasy Premier League 2021-22 season. In this one, guys, we'll talk about our team for the upcoming game week. We'll also discuss our transfer plans, and we'll end the video with the best captain picks for the week. So, guys, make sure that you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel as well if you're new around here. Guys, we also did a video on the wildcard drafts as a wildcard guide for Game Week 12. So in case if you are using your wildcard for Game Week 12, or in any case you just want to know which players to target, what should be the meta FPL strategy, and how to look at the game going forward, you should definitely watch out that video, guys. It's quite a comprehensive one and it should help you take the right calls for the upcoming game weeks. I'll add that link at the end of the video, guys, as well as in the video's description, so make sure you check that out. Now before we get into the team selection for Game Week 12, guys, let's quickly assess and review how our Game Week 11 was. So Game Week 11, we got 69 points. That brings us to a total of 761 points and an overall rank of 17k. A pretty good game week and a pretty good green arrow this time around, guys. Don't look at the bench, guys. Too many, just absolutely too many points on the bench. But I think the playing 11 was good in terms of the fixtures, and we went for the favorable fixtures and the players in form. Anyhow, guys, we got a good rank gain of 11k, but it could have been slightly more. Now quickly talking about the players here, and it's turning out to be a great season for defense, guys. There's so many points that the defenders are giving right now, especially the wingbacks, even goalkeepers, and Ramsdale, he got a clean sheet against Watford, guys. Now that move from Aspie to James, it was also well worth it, with James getting an assist along with 3 bonus points. Cancelo and Trent, they also scored double-digit hauls, taking our score from defense to 40 points for the week, guys. I think that's the highest in this FPL season so far. Coming to midfield, and Salah did get an assist. It was still a pretty quiet game for Salah, but I'm still okay with that. I'll take the assist and I'll move on. I know overall it was a tough game for Liverpool, and with everyone captaining Salah, guys, another week with no changes from the Salah captaincy, and I think this trend is definitely going to continue for the coming weeks. Rafinha surprisingly had a decent game. He got us 9 points against Leicester. I think that was pretty good. Foden and Buemo, they both blanked and they were somewhat average in the games, but I think I'm still not going to take too much out of that one particular game, and I think this week it could be pretty interesting. In attack, guys, another blank from Vardy, and the patience is definitely running a bit short with the Leicester forward. I've seen a lot of teams, I've seen a lot of managers taking out Vardy and getting in the likes of Kane, and we'll kind of talk about that a little later in the video, but I think this move, it's clearly not worked out for us so far, guys. Antonio, he somehow escaped any attacking returns in the 3 goals West Ham scored, so a bit unlucky there. Now Tony also blanked against Norwich and it was a pretty quiet game, so not really happy with that as well. Overall, I think the team looks in pretty good shape, guys, and let's talk about a selection for Game Week 12. Now we'll start with the easiest section of this team, guys. It's the defense. Now we'll start with goalkeepers first. I think in this one, in this particular week, we're playing a 4-4-2. So Ramsdale in goal, he looks pretty good. I know a lot of managers, they have Sanchez and they were a bit unlucky with that red card. But I generally feel the suspension is just for 1 week. I think the Sanchez owners can definitely keep him. They can even play a game week without a goalkeeper, guys. That's absolutely fine. It is no big deal. Especially if you have other fires to put out, if you have other priority transfers, don't take him out. Just play this week without a goalkeeper. Now, if you're in a wildcard, the situation changes a bit because now you can go for some other keepers. And I think Ramsdale is still my number 1 option. If you're okay taking a bit of a punt, then Guaita on a wildcard with good fixtures. Plus, he's making a lot of saves, guys. I think that also could be a great option. But I think my priority is going to be Ramsdale 1 and then Guaita 2nd. In terms of my defense for this particular week, now I have Reece James. I think his numbers have been too good, guys. I know a lot of people, they still don't have James. I think I would urge most of the FPL managers, if they're looking for a Chelsea defender, they have to prioritize Reece James. In general, he's been shooting a lot, and now especially with Lukaku coming back, I think his returns, his assists, even his goal scoring, guys, it can be a lot more. I think he can get a lot more FPL points, and I think a double up with Chilwell is still pretty good, but I would prioritize James if I'm looking at one defender. Now, guys, if you have Azpilicueta, if you have Rudiger, I think switching to James really makes a lot of sense. Now, you might ask that, should we do it for a hit? I think there's never a good time to buy Reece James, guys. Probably it's never going to be a good time to buy him. Now, if you have to take a hit to get Reece James in place of Chilwell or Azpilicueta, guys, I think it's pretty much worth it. I think he's definitely going to get a lot more FPL points than his Chelsea counterparts. I think he should definitely be prioritized. Now, second player is Trent. He's playing against Arsenal, who have generally looked pretty good in attack and defense. They've looked a lot better as a team overall. I think from a defensive perspective, Liverpool are not really reeking off a lot of confidence. It could be even weakened further if, let's say, Robertson doesn't play this game, sits out, and Tsimikas, who's generally a more attacking defender, he comes into play. I think the defense might struggle against Arsenal. I'm not really very hopeful in terms of Liverpool keeping a clean sheet against Arsenal. They're also conceding chances, so a clean sheet could actually be tricky. But in any case, guys, Trent is definitely there for the attacking threat, and he's still miles ahead of anyone in terms of expected goal involvements, crosses in the box, and all of the attacking stats for defenders. I still feel he's absolutely worth it. You have to play him. I don't think so. In general, the Robertson injury is a long-term injury. So Tsimikas, I know a lot of people are thinking of him as an option, but I think if it blocks the Jota move, let's say if you get Tsimikas and you're not able to get Jota, who might get more regular minutes than Tsimikas, I think getting Tsimikas might not be the ideal play. If you're looking for a very short-term punt, then maybe it's okay. And if you've already got Jota, it's fine. If you've not got Trent, probably prioritize Trent in that case. But I still feel Tsimikas, for me, definitely is not an option. Coming to Cancelo, who's our third defender. Now, he's the best City defender to own. It's been very clear. We know that Everton have looked pretty poor in defense. They're conceding a lot of chances. They're conceding a lot of shots. Now, even though we can expect some rotation from Pep this week, guys, I think City's game against Everton is definitely the one to target this week. You won't believe, 62% chance, that's the chance of a clean sheet, and it's the bookies' favorite to score over 2.5 goals. I think these are massive numbers from a defensive and an attacking perspective, guys, and I think Cancelo can contribute to both and give you a monster haul this week. Now coming to Livramento, we have a fourth defender, we have a fourth player in defense as Livramento, and I'll kind of talk about the reasons why am I playing him ahead of some players like a Jamie Vardy, like a Rafinha. Now Livramento, he's been giving a lot of FPL points. I know a lot of people keep talking about not playing him in their teams, benching him, and I think it's just easy to kind of go with the flow, play him, get those clean sheet points. If you get an attacking return, I think that's also a bonus. With those attacking returns and even a clean sheet, probably those bonus points will also flow in, and I think it's a pretty good call to play Livramento ahead of someone like a Rafinha, for example, this week. I think Livramento playing Norwich, who generally don't score a lot of goals, they also don't create a lot of chances in general. He still looks pretty good from an attacking perspective. I know a lot of people, they would be benching him for players like Rafinha, Vardy, as I just mentioned, maybe even Emil Smith Rowe, right? And I still feel Livramento needs to be prioritized for this week at least, guys, and he's definitely playing in our team. Now coming to our bench, Semedo is the only defender that we have on our bench right now, and I think, guys, he could be soon off for someone like a Mitchell from Crystal Palace, who has decent underlying stats, or if we see the Spurs wingbacks, right? I know there's a lot of talk about how Conte is going to use the wingbacks, and if we see them coming in form, then one of Reguilon or even Emerson Royale, guys, they could be on the cards. That transfer could be in the making. I think Semedo is definitely going to make way for one of those moves. Now coming to midfielders, and of course, we start with Mo Salah, 112 points, the highest scoring player by a distance, guys. Yes, he's definitely essential by chance. Just by chance, if you don't have him in your team, guys, you have to get him in your FPL team. What the hell are you doing without Salah? Definitely get him in your team. Best player in the league right now, in terms of form at least. Now, Arsenal's defense, it's a bit tricky because they've tightened up and they don't concede a lot of goals. But guys, it's Salah at the end of the day. Right now, the fixture doesn't matter for Liverpool and Salah. I think he can genuinely score against anyone at the moment. Now, a second player is Buemo, guys. I'm not very confident. I'm pretty sure he's going to start against Newcastle, but the last game that he played for Brentford, he definitely played as a wing back for at least 20-25 minutes, and guys, that doesn't really give a lot of confidence. He generally has been very disappointing because we had really high hopes from the Brentford attackers, from the Brentford double up. It was a huge differential, and Buemo himself was a great differential pick, but things haven't really worked out. He got injured and he's generally struggled in the team. Brentford, I think, overall have struggled with injuries, with key players missing. I think in attack also, they've been kind of struggling to get goals. So I'm definitely going to give him this particular week against Newcastle. I know there are a lot of options in midfield right now, guys. And if you want to sell him, it's absolutely fine. I'll probably just hold him for this week. But in case if you want to sell him and get someone like a Jota, for example, get someone like a Son, for example, somehow you make those upgrades and downgrades. I think in that case, it's pretty fine. If you still want to go for a Gallagher, for example, For Buemo, I think that transfer is also pretty good. But personally for me, I'm keeping faith in Buemo and I'm playing him against Newcastle this week. Our third player is Phil Foden, guys. He's the only Man City attacker that is probably worth talking about right now. I know that he could get rotated, but he's still City's best attacker, guys. He's definitely key to Pep's team right now and he should get regular minutes. I know in and around the Christmas time, I think those fixtures might be a bit tricky to call, but right now I think he starts this one. His general stats, his attacking stats are pretty good. I know a lot of people are debating him over Jota or maybe one of Jota or Foden. I'll probably have both of those players right now, and probably the conversation could be different with Son coming into play, and where I kind of prioritize Jota and Foden. But in general, I think Foden has looked pretty good. He's definitely a player who could give you attacking returns, massive attacking returns. Like, we know that he can score 15-20 points as a whole in a particular game week as well, right? So I think there's definitely merit in playing him in your team for this week. If, let's say, we see that he's not getting regular minutes, then probably he can make way for someone like a Jota. But I think it's not a transfer for this week. If you want to go through that route, I think the situation should be that way and it should be a bit different. But I think in general, Foden as a pick, as a standalone pick, looks pretty good. Our fourth pick, Gallagher, who's been super frustrating, guys. I've owned him for about 4 weeks, I think now. I've played him for a couple of weeks. He didn't do anything. The game against Man City, he hauled big. I think that was a bit surprising for a lot of people, and I think by that time his ownership was very low. Last week probably was a mistake from my end. I could have played him. He did haul. He did get a lot of points. I think this time around I'm playing him. Hopefully he gets something. Again, if he blanks, for example, I won't be surprised because that's just how Gallagher has been so far in FPL, guys. He's blanked against the easier teams. He's blanked when Milivojevic has generally played. He's done well when he's got set pieces, when he's created a lot of chances. But in general, he's done really well against the tougher teams. I think Palace in general have held a lot of merit in terms of attack and defense as well, especially against those stronger sides. We know Gallagher can create chances. We know he can make those late runs in the box. We also know that he can score goals. Yes, he scored so many already. He's a really good option at that price, guys. And he's also facing Burnley, so they're not really that great in terms of defense. They don't really inspire a lot of confidence. So I think playing Gallagher makes a lot of sense this week. So these were our midfielders. Now let's look at our forwards. We start with Mikel Antonio. I know Mikel Antonio has been transferred by a lot of managers because probably they're trying to get Kane. I think in that situation, still pretty fine. But I think in general, Mikel Antonio could still score goals. He could still do well against the likes of Wolves, Man City, Brighton, Chelsea, Burnley, Arsenal. I know these are tough games. They're tricky games. But I think it's difficult to lose him, especially when you have too much value invested in him. I know that he can score against these teams. West Ham are a really good attacking side. I think a lot of us are still not believing that West Ham could be a top 4 team, but their numbers in general have looked really good. They probably look like the third best attacking team in the league right now. And I think those are really good numbers for someone like a West Ham. The fixtures are also decent. I think from game week 18, they get a lot better. So if you sell him right now, if you don't have him, then you probably would be investing and spending a lot of money. So I think the only logical move, in case if you feel that he has a tough fixture, probably don't play him, just keep him on the bench. But I think with no great replacements right now, with not a lot of options, probably apart from Harry Kane, which I think is gonna be a common transfer, it's gonna be an easy move to kind of make. Of course, if you make certain downgrades and upgrades elsewhere. But I think in general, having Mikel Antonio definitely holds a lot of merit, and I think he's gonna do really well this week. Our second option is Ivan Toney. I know he's been frustrating. There was a lot of talk about Toney and again Buemo, as I just mentioned a little earlier, in terms of how they can do well, how they can play. Brentford was also doing really well. Now the numbers are kind of tanking down, they're going down. And I still feel Newcastle, considering that how bad they are in defense, I still feel Toney can get something, guys. Again, like last week, as I said, this could still be a game where Toney gets a goal or two. He's generally not a striker who will take the world apart, who will set the world on fire. He's again not probably a striker who's going to give you about 10-15 points. He could get a penalty and then he could get bonus points as well. Maybe he scores a winner and he scores extra points. I think in general he kind of ticks along. I know he's a cheap option, so in case if he's allowing you to go to a Kane, probably keep Antonio as well in your team. I think he's still a decent option to go for. I still won't make a transfer out for Toney this particular week. I'll still hold him for this week as well against Newcastle. And let's say if he blanks, or you probably try to get Kane and you want downgrades, you can probably downgrade a Toney to probably an Armstrong or maybe even Broja. But in general, I think Toney looks good for this week. So that was our 4-4-2, guys. On the bench, we have Rafinha. He's still the talisman for Leeds, guys. Bamford has not been playing, so he's, of course, taken the attacking role. He's scoring a lot of FPL points. I think he's generally overperforming his numbers. That might not sustain for a very, very long time. The upcoming fixtures are tough, and I think that's a great filter. That's a very important filter for a lot of people who are trying to go to, let's say, someone like a Jota, for example, or maybe even Son, for example, who look like better options with better fixtures and, of course, playing for better attacking teams. Still, I think for this week, a lot of people might move him out, and that's absolutely a right transfer to make. I'm also not very confident in terms of his game against Conte. I think Conte is a very tactical manager, and I think he'll definitely draw up plans to stop and shut up against Rafinha. I think he's definitely going to keep Rafinha quiet, and for that reason, he's on our bench right now, guys. We also have Jamie Vardy, and I think that's a tricky one because, of course, Chelsea is one of the best defenses in the Premier League right now, but Jamie Vardy, we've all seen it. He has the ability to score against big teams. His attacking stats have gone down over the past few weeks, and I think that has inspired a lot of people to kind of move towards Kane, maybe go downgrade to a cheaper striker and probably get Son instead. So those kind of moves, I've been seeing this a lot over the past 1 week or so. But I think in general, having Jamie Vardy could still be okay. I'm also kind of thinking of moving him, probably not this week, but probably next week, having probably 2 transfers, and kind of talk about the transfer strategy just after we finish the striker section. I think in general, Vardy against Chelsea, not inspiring a lot of confidence. Chelsea could still keep a clean sheet. And having said that, still not very, very comfortable keeping him on the bench. And I think that could change at the last moment. But I think for now, he remains on our bench. Now, coming to the transfer planner, guys, coming to the transfer strategy for this particular week. Sorry to say, sorry to disappoint, but we are not making any transfers for this week. So I'm definitely saving a transfer. I generally don't think, it's worth taking a hit for Kane. I know a lot of people have asked me about taking a hit for Kane. Probably won't advocate that decision until unless you also involve Jota in that particular move, because with the Jota and Kane transfers and probably taking out some other players, you're definitely getting ahead of the curve at least by a week. So I think in that scenario, the hit still makes a lot of sense. But if I have to transfer out Vardy for, let's say, someone like a Kane, and I have to take a hit for that, I probably won't do it. My dilemma right now is that I don't even have the funds to do that straight move. Let's say if I have a free transfer this week, and if I just want to do Vardy to Kane, I cannot do that because I don't have enough money. And I'll probably have to take out Rafinha, probably have to go for a very cheap midfielder who I won't play in general. So taking a hit for that doesn't make a lot of sense. We might do it next week when we have 2 free transfers, but I think for this week, we're not going to do that. I think in general, my thinking and my strategy is more kneeling towards Kane because I think under Conte, he's going to do well. I think he's doing decent for England right now. I know there's a lot of debate around the fixtures were kind of very easy for England, and they were kind of farmers teams who don't really do well against big teams like England. But I generally feel the confidence looks a lot better. I think whatever I've seen of Kane, I think he's making those right runs. He's doing the right things which he wasn't doing under Nuno when the whole fiasco was kind of happening. But I would still give it probably a week more of data. I still want to see how they do, how Tottenham do, how the Conte management does against Leeds, and then kind of make that move, then kind of make that transfer. In general, I think how Conte plays and how he manages and he sets up his team, I think the strikers do really well. I know Son could also be an out of position striker, but I still feel Harry Kane is going to get majority of the goals. He's definitely going to play as a number 9. He might not even drop deep as he's done over the past few seasons, like he was probably doing under Mourinho, like he was probably doing under Nuno as well. I don't think so he's going to do that under Conte. The defense is definitely going to get a lot better, but I still feel Harry Kane could be the crux of the whole team. I think that would be a transfer, but not for this week at least. Another transfer that I wanted to make was I definitely wanted to get Jota. But again, like the Kane move, guys, I don't have enough money to go from Rafinha to Jota. I'll probably have to downgrade defense to a very cheap defender and then probably upgrade Rafinha to Jota. That would also require 2 transfers, 2 moves, and a hit if I want to do it this week. I probably don't want to do it right now. Again, like Kane, I probably want to see Jota for 1 more week. For this particular week, how many minutes does he get? What kind of positions is he taking? Is he creating a lot of chances? And what's the overall impact of having Jota in the Liverpool team right now? And probably after that, I'll make that move. But But I think for this week again, I'll probably just gonna see how these two players do, because they're definitely way ahead of anyone else in my transfer plans. I definitely want to get, I think, Jota first and probably then Kane. But let's see how it goes. For this week at least, there's nothing that's happening. Great, so now we've done the transfer plan a bit. We'll talk about the captain picks now. Again, it's not really much of a conversation here because Mo Salah has to be the captain, is the permanent captain for a lot of managers, for majority of the managers right now. And considering how much ownership he has, how much is the effective ownership every week, guys, if you don't captain Salah and if he returns, he's definitely gonna hurt your rank by at least 2x. So it's gonna take a brave FPL manager to go against the odds, to go against Salah. Still, I think it's a very safe option. He can score against Arsenal. It's not the worst fixture out of the lot. Still a tricky one, but I think because everybody would be going for Salah, I think it's too much of a risk, and I at least won't be doing it. And Salah definitely has the safest option. In any case, if you want to go for a bit differential options, there's Mikel Antonio. He did score in the international break. I know he can score against Wolves as well. Now, West Ham's attacking numbers, they've looked quite elite, and both Bowen and Fornals, guys, they've both hit top form since Benrahma's numbers have kind of cooled off. Still, there's a lot of support for Antonio. He could still do well. I think he's been dodging FPL points, if you know what I mean. And it's been really frustrating. Having said that, I think he could still score a goal or maybe even more against Wolves. And if you are really brave enough, if you really want to put yourself out there, I think Mikel Antonio could be a decent option. In case if you're not inspired by Mikel Antonio against Wolves, then you have the Tottenham boys as well. You have Heung-min Son. Now they're facing Leeds United. Last few weeks, their numbers have improved. Leeds have looked a lot better. But I think Leeds defense overall has looked pretty poor, especially against the bigger teams. Now coming to Son, and I think he's been doing okay for Tottenham. He's been doing pretty well, in fact, in spite of the team playing pretty average. Now one concern that I have with Son captaincy, guys, is that he's been getting shifted around and subbed in the games since Conte joined. I think that trend could continue. Still, I think he's a very solid pick, but not shouting 100% captaincy to me at the moment. Still a differential option to go for if you want to do things a bit differently. Now, in case if you don't have Son, in case if you have Kane, then you can also go for him. He's a great option, I think. He allows you to go differential. He's not owned by a lot of managers. He scored 7 goals in 2 games for England. I think that should definitely give him a lot of confidence. And generally, guys, Kane is always a very dangerous player. I mean, we've seen that it's not that overnight he's definitely going to be a very bad player, or he's not going to give you FPL points, or he's not going to score goals. I still feel because of this whole situation, the player was in a difficult condition, but now I think he could be back. He could be scoring a lot of goals. And if you have Kane, if you've probably got him for a hit, why not go for the captaincy? Why not take that chance? Again, if you are okay taking that risk, that's a huge caveat here. Other options include Phil Foden and Cristiano Ronaldo, guys. Phil Foden, now Everton have looked defensively pretty poor. They've not looked very comfortable. Man City's confidence, I think that will be quite high, especially after beating Man United 2-0 at home. I feel rotation could take place, and that's why it's a risky pick. But I think Phil Foden against Everton, not a bad shout at all. Last option is Cristiano Ronaldo. CR7 against a Watford team. He generally does really good against these weaker oppositions, but I think United generally have been poor. Defensively, I think it's been more of a worry. Still, their attack is pretty good. They can score goals. And Ronaldo, guys, he has been getting in the goals. I think the trend could continue against Watford as well, which is a pretty mediocre defense according to me. So these were some differential options in case if you don't want to go for a Mr. Mo Salah, guys. So who are you captaining for Game Week 12? Do let me know in the comments below. So guys, that'll be all from my side. I really hope you'll find this video helpful in setting up your teams for Game Week 12. Make sure you hit the like button, guys, if you liked the team selection video. You can also consider subscribing to the channel as well. That will really mean a lot to me. Now we'll be back for the deadline stream, guys. As always, this will be an hour and a half before the deadline. So do join us if you have any last minute questions or transfer queries. All the best to all FPL managers. Enjoy your week, and I'll see you insaners next time.